Infinite impact. Hey, it's a great day to be great, and it's a great day to continue to build the legacy and to continue to build the platform that I call leadership. Welcome to this episode of the Infinite Impact Leadership Podcast. I am the host, Dr. Daryl Crosby, and I am honored and I am humbled that you have chosen to spend the next few moments of your life with me. And in this episode, we are checking for understanding with the one and only Dr. Chaka Smith, as she shares with us what 2020 taught her and the lessons she's taken into 2021. Let's go. She is a member of the National Society of Leadership and Success. She's a member of the African American Leadership Society of Anderson County. She's a recipient of the 2018 Athena Young Professionals Leadership Award and the 2019 African American Leadership Society's Community Trailblazer Award. She's been recognized as one of Anderson Independent Top 20 Under 40 Emerging Leaders and one of the 2020 South Carolina Black Pages Top 20 Under 40. She's the current president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Kappa Zeta Omega Chapter. She's the CEO of Mainstream Therapeutic Services, and she's also the CEO of Start Tomorrow Today. Start Tomorrow Today is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping families or individuals through dire situations by uplifting and empowering them with faith, self-worth, relationships, and leadership. In Hebrew, her name means life, and she has been a significant factor in the lives of others as a friend and as a leader. So everybody, I want to introduce to you all and welcome to the leadership platform, Dr. Chaka Smith. Dr. Smith, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. First of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for just joining us and joining this platform here at the Infinite Impact Leadership Podcast. This is special to me, so I'm really grateful and humbled to have you with me here on this episode here. So we got a lot to talk about. If we go just by what I read from your bio, we got a lot to talk about. You have an enormous level of experience with leadership and with working with people and seeing other people, to helping them transform into that next level as a leader. And I'm interested to see, where all of this passion came from. And I'm interested to hear about your philosophies and your mindset when it comes to leadership. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, Dr. Smith. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
First, I want to say thank you again for having me. I really appreciate the invitation. Um, like you said, you want me to call you Dr. Daryl? Prof. Dr.
Whatever,
Crosby?
whatever.
Okay.
Hey,
Uh, so I'm born and raised in Anderson, South Carolina, and I try to live my life with the principle of do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
right.
And that's what my parents taught me at an early age. I matriculated through the District 5 Anderson school system. I graduated from T.L. Hanna High School.
T.L.
Um,
Hanna, isn't that the same high school that Radio went to?
yeah,
Yeah,
great.
okay.
And Chadwick Boseman. Mhm.
Yeah, awesome.
So I went to T.L. Hanna, graduated, continued, um, got my BA in psychology from Winthrop, and then I received my master's in counseling from Webster University.
Okay.
And a few years after that, I received my license in counseling. And that gave me the opportunity to start my private practice. Um, and a few years later, I decided to go back and get my PhD. And so I got that in general psychology from Walden University.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I was extremely grateful for the knowledge that I gained and the understanding of the human mind. So I was extremely eager to start helping people.
Okay.
In 2011, I decided to open my own practice,
Mm.
Mainstream Therapeutic Services. And through that venture, I was able to help people with mental illnesses, specifically anxiety and depression. All I have in control over developing and tailoring services based on the client's actual needs and what I thought would be best rather than someone telling me what they thought I needed to do.
Yeah. 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 So, okay. So when you started your private practice, one thing about leadership, you got to start from somewhere,
Yeah.
and a lot of people with leadership capabilities and a desire, sometimes it's hard for them to step out into that role, or in your case, to start your private practice, or in another case, to go to a different position of leadership. Like, how did you know that you were ready? That you had what it takes as a leader to take it to that next step. I mean, other leaders go to a different position, like I mentioned, but you did a whole different. You started your private practice. So, how did you know that you were ready for that?
Things started happening where I was working to make me uncomfortable. I knew I had the skills and the knowledge and the ability, and I knew I had everything that everybody else had that was over me. I had more. I had a license. Some of
Hmm.
my supervisors and other people did not even have that. So I'm looking at that like, why am I here
Yeah.
working for a fraction of what they're receiving off of me? And so that's why I said, I'm just going to start my own practice.
Hmm.
I got it. I got the skills, the knowledge. And I tried to start it earlier, but it wasn't the right time. Things were not falling in place.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden things start falling in place. And then I said, okay, well, God, now it must be the right time. And before it wasn't, because I was trying to push that. And so that's kind of what made me go ahead and start my private practice. And about 3 days after I got all the paperwork together, got everything straight, I received two new clients.
Oh,
And
wow.
so because I had like a part time, I didn't want to let go of the other job all the way.
Okay.
I started my practice and did all the work, but I was still scared. But when I got those two new clients, I said, all right, I'm just gonna jump all the way in now. And I
Mm.
did it. I had faith. I
Yeah.
jumped in and I knew I had nothing else. So I had to do the work.
Yeah.
I had to eat.
Yeah. 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 Like, that mindset of, I don't have a plan B, so I got to make plan A work. You know.
It
Now,
has to work.
so a lot of times, when someone is making that next step, or they're doing certain things in their lives, they say that there's two ways to learn. You can either learn through a mentor, or you can learn through mistakes. For you to get to the level where you are now as a leader, um, where do you feel the most of your learning came from? Did you have mentors, or were you one of those people that just messed up, and on a consistent basis, but at the same time you learned from those mistakes, so you knew exactly what not to do in certain situations? What do you say your teaching come from?
My teaching came more from my mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I initially I asked people for help and they were reluctant to help me.
Mm.
I'm not sure if it was because they thought I would be competition,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
I made a lot of mistakes and that's how I learned.
Yeah. Yeah. and
Yeah,
so you're not just a business owner. You're an entrepreneur, right?
correct.
That's that next level of owning a business. This is what you do. So I'm sure that you have met um, a lot of people who have, kind of, whether they realize it a lot, they kind of taught you some things. Not necessarily being your official mentor, but just learning from different people from all walks of life. What's been a valuable lesson that you've learned so far? And of course, every day as leaders, you're still learning. What has been a valuable lesson for you so far, that you've learned from the position that you're in and the people that you connect with now?
Well, I have two influential leaders that I look up to. Um, the first one is someone that I had the pleasure of working under, and I'm not even sure if she knows how special she is to me.
Hmm.
Um, Her name is Patricia Edwards, and I loved how she led with love and concern. She was not pushy, but she was assertive, and followed the rules. She did the right thing. So if you broke the rules, she didn't overlook that. You were reprimanded, and
Right.
I appreciated that because that and she did it with love. I think that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to. That's the biggest thing that I took from her is doing things with love, and you can tell.
Right.
Um, Never trying to bend the rules or get around them. The other leader is my sorority's regional director, Carolyn Randolph. She also leads with love and concern and is very poised and loving, yet also stern and assertive.
Yeah.
I try to follow their lead. I learned from them that being honest and unapologetically yourself
Mm.
yields great results.
Actually, what you just did, how you kind of describe these two ladies that's been instrumental in your life as a person and as a leader. You did exactly what I was going to ask you to do. You described them, and I was going to ask you if you had to make a like if you were to go into a lab, and you had to make the perfect leader, like what would be some materials and some ingredients that you would use. So it sounds like you said love is one.
Mhm.
um, you also use several times assertive.
Yes.
um, but I would imagine with that, someone who's assertive, there's like a certain level of assertiveness that person would need to use in order to be an effective leader. So, what are some other descriptors or some other materials or ingredients that you would use to build this perfect leader?
Some other important ingredients that I would use is integrity. And I think I mentioned that
Yeah,
doing what's right,
yeah,
confidence, being competent in what you're teaching and what you're doing and who you're over. Know your stuff.
yeah,
Go
yeah,
to trainings,
yeah.
strengthen your strengths. Go do the required. Okay, now I'm stumbling. Okay,
Nah,
so
you're good. You're good.
um, but just make sure that you can always learn something new. You do not know everything. You are human.
Yeah,
And the other ingredient would be humility. If you do mess up, acknowledge that. Say you're sorry or say you may not know the answer to something, yet you go get the answer.
yeah.
Again, I think the important ingredient also is to just acknowledge that you are human
Okay.
and humans don't know everything and they do make mistakes.
Yeah.
And
That
so I try to lead that way as well.
yeah, that transparency is
Mhm.
big. Is big. Those are wonderful ingredients, man, and I think that integrity piece. I always believe, and you may have heard me say it. I've always believed that character over anything, over your content. I mean, you're in the mental health field. I'm in the education field, and so we can't really. Well, I guess we could, but really it would be difficult for us to compare our content. I mean, yes, there are some things that are like we deal with some mental health situations in education,
Yeah.
and in mental health you deal with some educational pieces too. But when we compare content, that's one thing. But as leaders, our character have it has to supersede the content. Regardless of what field that you're in, that character is number one. That integrity, that honesty, that transparency, all those things that you just mentioned is crucial. If that person wants to develop as a leader, and if that person wants the people around them to
Mhm.
develop, that's going to help their organization, and eventually it's going to help their lives. That character piece is major. Is major. So I'm glad that you brought that up. So with all of that, when did you say that you finished your PhD?
2020,
2020,
January. Yes,
January 2020. Okay. Now, congratulations, first of all.
yeah.
First of all, because as you know, that's a grind like none other. Um, so speaking of 2020, this whole purpose of this series that we're doing here at the Impact Leadership Podcast is called Checking for Understanding. And in education, that's a very common phrase that we use, where teachers can kind of gauge how much their students have learned from their instruction by
Mm,
doing different things to check for their understanding. Now, there's a wonderful quote that I live by, one of my favorites that says, in school, or something, I'm kind of paraphrasing. In school, you learn the test, excuse me, you learn the lesson and then you take the test.
mm,
But in life it's different. In life, you're tested in order to learn the lesson. And
yes,
so I think everybody everybody right now can say that in the year 2020, 2020 was a big test for all of us, you know,
absolutely.
in all aspects of our lives, whether it's business, whether it's personal, whatever the situation is. 2020 tested us, right? And
Right.
so one of the things I wanted to ask you, um, around, I think it was around March 13th. That was the yeah, it was March 13th. It was Friday the 13th. That's when it was official that we were in a national state of emergency with the coronavirus, and all that stuff that was going on. Where were you? Like, what memory do you have? Because that's one of the things. Like, to me, I remember where I was 9/11.
Right.
I remember where I was on March 13th. So where were you? What were you doing? What went through your mind when you got the word that the United States, we're in a national emergency, a pandemic?
That weekend, we had a church activity. Um, a group around my age and a little bit younger, we had a weekend planned. And I remember not going on that Friday night,
Hmm.
but I had to speak on that Saturday morning.
Hmm.
And I said to myself, well, I'll go, but I won't hug anybody. And so, and I won't shake hands. So I
Yeah.
went.
Yeah.
And some people were not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
I did. I remember I did shake a hand. I got nervous. I put on hand sanitizer, but
Right.
it didn't I didn't feel the impact of it at that time. I knew they said it was a national emergency,
Yeah.
but it hadn't hit home yet.
Hmm.
But I remember going on into that next week, I heard that my cousin had tested positive and was in the ICU.
Wow.
And I that was one of my close cousins.
Yeah.
And when I heard that hit home. And that's when I found myself the rest of the week sitting on the couch in my bedroom, looking out the window, feeling helpless,
Hmm.
hopeless, scared. I didn't know if I had it. I didn't know
Yeah.
if I had given it to my parents who have underlying issues and
Yeah.
are older.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how I was going to help anybody because I was sure, because I had been doing service. So I was trying to figure, well, how am I going to do service?
Yeah.
I can't be around anybody.
Yeah.
So during that, like the first 2 months, I just sat there. I literally just would sit and be filled with anxiety,
Hmm.
just filled. And I'm like, but Shaka, you're a therapist.
Yeah.
Why can't you
Ironic.
get through this?
Yeah.
What? And so I remember being asked to to coordinate a Zoom meeting. And I really didn't even know what Zoom was
Right.
until
Yeah.
you invited me to have a conversation with other doctors. And I appreciate that because I hadn't connected with anybody. And
Wow.
so when you did that, I still had anxiety, but I was just happy to talk to people
Right.
other than my parents.
Right.
But I was asked to do a Zoom about it's okay to not be okay.
Hmm.
And just preparing for that was very therapeutic for me
Okay.
because after I presented the information, and it was for my church, and
Okay.
so we had about, I think we had 15 or 20 members on that Zoom, but I don't think they realized how therapeutic that was for me.
Yeah.
And I'm telling them what they need to do, like stay connected,
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
exercise. And I'm like, I need to do all of this stuff. And so that's how I was able to kind of get out of that funk
Yeah.
and start being proactive and figure out, okay, we're in this now. This is what you can do. This is what you cannot do. This is what you can do to help people. You can
Hmm.
send them groceries. So I started sending groceries to people that needed assistance because people didn't have any food. People were not working, losing,
Yeah.
they couldn't go to work. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just had to, so all that to say, um, when I found out about it and it sunk in after my cousin, was in the ICU, that I will never forget that
Yeah.
time. And I'm grateful for that because it was necessary. It
Yeah.
made me realize that I am a human
Yes. Indeed.
and I had to figure out how to get through what was going on. And I'm grateful that I did.
In all of that, and this is one thing I admire about you, Dr. Smith. You said out of everything that was going on, you're going through your levels of anxiety and, you know, you being in mental health and and as a leader, people are always looking to leaders for answers. But at the end of the day, you still found time to serve,
Mm,
and that's a major part of being an effective leader, being that servant leader, as they call, to not think about yourself, because you could have, excuse me, you could have been still looking out the window, not worried about anyone else, not concerned about anyone else. You all about self. Oh, I don't know how many posts that I saw throughout this whole quarantine about people, oh my God, I got to get out. I can't be in the house all day. I got to do this. I got to do that. But you could have been like that too. But your focus, even throughout everything, you wanted to serve. That was
mhm.
what you were concerned, not about going out or going to the store or whatever the case. You had a purpose when you went to the store. Your purpose was to get this for someone else, and that is a major part of being a leader. And so, like I said, as a leader, so many people are looking at you, looking at you, whether it's family. I know you have a son, whether it's your family, whether it's your parents, you know, people are looking at you. Okay, Doctor, well, Shaka, this is what they're calling you. What are you going to do? Or even people who know you as Dr. Smith, what are you going to do? How were you able to ensure that those people were going to be okay? Those people that are under your leadership, you
Right.
know, how did you ensure them that, uh, with everything that you were able to do, that they were going to be okay? How did you work all of that out?
Well, what I did was I contacted them
Okay.
through phone,
Okay.
not text or email. I needed to hear their voices and they needed to hear
Connection.
my voice. I
Hmm.
needed to connect
Hmm.
because like I said in the beginning, being that human, I did lose connection. I didn't know what to do, helpless, hopeless, but after I regained it back, I called everybody.
Okay.
Um my sorority sisters, and just wanted to know, are you okay? Do you need anything?
Yeah.
even if it's just, do you need to talk and process what's going on? Have you had the opportunity to process? Um, I remember even doing a post on Facebook. You remember where the hearts, where you put a heart for what, how do you
Yeah.
feel?
Yeah.
And doing that. And then some of the people had the certain color heart that meant not so well. And so I just made sure to slide up in their inbox, like, do you need what can I help you
Right.
do?
Right.
What do we need to talk? Do you need any groceries? Because that was my thing.
Yeah.
I'll send you some groceries.
Yeah.
Um, but I just try to make sure because I just want to thank God because
Yeah.
He is so good. I'm just
Absolutely.
glad to even still be here today after going through all of that and not getting sick. My parents haven't been sick.
Yeah.
Um and my business stayed afloat. I
Yeah.
mean, he is just so good and I'm so grateful
Yeah.
to even have the means to help other people
Yeah.
and to provide assistance. But I know I went all the way off.
No, no, no. Keep it going. Keep
But
it going.
I forgot what we were talking about because God is so
No, you're good. I mean, you
good.
know, my I guess my initial question with that was just, knowing that people are looking at you, but you answered it. You felt that you needed to connect with them and you actually
Yeah.
connected. I mean, you put up a survey in a sense of how are you feeling,
Mhm. Yeah.
that aligns and that's uh in perfect alignment with that speech that you had to do. It's okay
Yeah.
to be okay. It's okay to not be okay. And
Yeah.
so you put that post up there and you looked at it and you saw who wasn't okay, and then
Mhm.
you took action to see what it was that you needed to do or that you could do. Now, granted,
Mhm.
you can't save everybody, and everybody, you know, as a leader, sometimes we get hit with, we want to help, we want to provide whatever it is that we can provide. I know for myself in the position I'm in as a school administrator, that's one of the things I always ask my staff members, like, okay, what is it that I can do, or from an admin standpoint, what is it that we can do to help you? And most of the time, they can't answer that. Most of the time, it's like I don't know right now.
Yeah, but that's when you, because I'm sorry to cut you off, but
No,
that's
you're
when you
good.
provide them with, well, what I did was they don't know right now. I get that because they still may be trying to work through whatever happened or what's going on or if they've lost loved ones. Because there was a lot of grieving and a lot
Yeah,
of things going on that affects you mentally.
yeah.
So I compiled a list of resources. So
Mm,
if something happened, here is your list. You
mm.
can go down this list and pick whatever you need so that when you come to, then you can have your list of resources that can assist you.
Yeah, yeah. So you have that, you as a leader, and these are things that you don't brag about this stuff. Like, you don't post the stuff on Facebook, and when we do talk, you don't. That's not the first thing that comes out. Like, we have to pull that out of you for your compassion. You're willing to serve. Those are top notch, top shelf leadership qualities, and you have that, and you have that, and you are not concerned about making sure everybody else sees that. And one thing about leadership, we have to be careful about people who are, okay, so that's my platform and pedestal comparison, right? So a platform of leadership, I'm not going to go deep into it, but there's a difference between, I feel there's a difference between being on that platform of leadership and being on that pedestal. When you're on the
Yeah.
pedestal, you're by yourself. Okay, that's not what leadership is about. That's a pedestal is set higher. Look at me, look at me, look at what I'm doing. A platform has a different setup. It's wider. That way, you can bring more people up on the platform with you as a leader, and you can lift everybody up. But with those qualities that you have, it's clear that you understand what being on a leadership platform is all about. You have that compassion. You have that servant mentality, and you don't boast about it. So now with all of that, how did that impact? How did when COVID 19 hit, how did that impact your business? You know, your home is one thing, your loved ones, that's another, with your cousin and being
Right.
careful with your parents and that type of thing. Now, what about your business as an entrepreneur?
Mm.
Ain't no plan B,
No.
you know. So, and you know, and I don't have the numbers and the statistics of how many people lost their jobs, like businesses
Right.
shut down, you know. But how did the pandemic 2020, how did it impact your business?
Well, that's where again I say God is so good.
Yeah.
Um, it I say it impacted it in a good and bad way.
Okay.
I did lose clients. I was not able to see them.
Okay.
No
Okay.
one was coming into the office.
Right.
So what I did take a break a few weeks, and during that time, they were offering a lot online. I noticed they were offering a lot of free workshops and
Okay.
different trainings. So I became certified in teletherapy,
Wow.
and I started marketing that. And most of my clients, thank God, they came over. They didn't mind sitting in front of a computer because that's what they didn't want to go out, and so it
Yeah.
was a safe place. And so we I would do Zoom sessions, and in stuttering, why am I stuttering? So I would do Zoom sessions, and I was able to gain other clients that way.
Wow. So you saw a need and you went to go to get certified in
I
teletherapy.
certified, yeah.
Wow. Now, what made you do that? Like, you know, because I'm thinking, okay, in many people's situations and mindset, okay, we quarantine. Okay, that means I ain't got to go to work. Okay, that means I could just be here at the house.
Mm,
Oh, that means I wake up a little later than what I normally wake up to go to work. Oh, I'm gonna do that then. I'm gonna take full advantage of this quarantine. You know,
mm.
but what in the world made you say no?
Well, that hustler mentality,
Hustler
being
mentality.
an
Okay, that's what I'm trying
entrepreneur,
to pull out of.
I
Yeah,
don't have a plan B, so
there
I
you
have to
go.
continue to figure out how to make plan A work. So, um, and I knew if I'm not going to be able to see them, I need to figure out how to still stay connected because I still need to be connected. So, and
Yes.
then do it in the right way.
Yeah.
I can't just start FaceTiming clients. I mean, that's not professional.
Professional.
So you have to make sure that you're doing it in the appropriate way and
Yeah.
follow all the guidelines. And so I needed to go get the training because I want to make sure, again, I'm doing it correctly and how the powers to be need me to do it.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
licensing board,
Yeah.
all of that. I just need to make sure I'm doing it right. So I went through the training, um, and at that time again, I wasn't bringing a lot of money in, and so I found a scholarship so that, and I wrote questions. So in order for me to do one of the trainings for free, I had to write questions and submit them for other people that took the training to answer. I don't know if that makes sense. So
No.
I had to
No. Yeah.
create multiple choice questions and submit them, and then I was able to get another training for free. And so I was still just trying to get all the information and education I could get while I had this time available. Because I don't know if you're
Mm.
like me, I can't sit still. I have, except when COVID hit, it had me down. But other than that, I got right back up and I couldn't sit still.
You said the hustler's mentality that, like, you know, earlier we mentioned being assertive, and that's a way to show your assertiveness. Like, nothing's going to stop you. Like, relentless. You know, you have to keep going. You by any means, you know, you want to be successful. And I understand you not having a plan B. Of course, that's motivation, of course. But I believe that even if you had a plan B, you probably still would have done the same thing.
Probably so.
Yeah, because that's just a part of you. You know, that's a part of your service. You know, what you want to do to help others, you're always thinking about others first.
Right.
Yeah, and again, those are top shelf qualities of leadership that I've always admired. I've always looked at that and said, yeah, that's she's going to go far. And then, to all of my young or seasoned leaders out there, if you're listening, pay attention to everything that's being said here, because these are good nuggets for you as you're stepping onto your platform to lead. You're going to need these things. You need to develop these qualities. Some of us can do it naturally. Some of
Mhm.
us is a little more of a challenge for us,
Yeah.
but they in the long run they will come in handy for sure. So one of the other things that I wanted to ask you, you mentioned, obviously you working with anxiety, you working with depression, working with mental health. Um, you as yourself. Let's talk about self care. You
Yeah.
know, that's one thing I think 2020 showed us
Yeah.
is
Let's,
it showed us how much we can eat and how quickly we can gain weight.
oh,
I
yes.
tell you that. But it is more to it than just weight gain or weight loss.
Yeah.
There's different elements to self care. So let's talk about, if you don't mind, sharing some of the things that you do, or that you have heard that's been successful. Talk about your self care regimen.
Sure. So, my regimen that I developed during COVID was to focus more on going into my inner body. Um, I began it, well, what that means is to go into your inner body is to focus on the present. An easier way to go into your inner body is to focus on your breathing first
Hmm.
and to inhale deeply, exhale out deeply, um, to focus on how you feel in the inside, how your body feels. Do you feel any tension? Where do
Hmm.
you feel that tension? And so when I started focusing more on my inner body, I started to respond to things in a more educated way instead of responding to things emotionally.
Mm.
I was able to breathe, and then whatever came out was a more educated approach. Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense. Absolutely, because many people, not to sound morbid, but many people may in 2020, I
Mhm.
believe the statistics show that that emotion, that depression, that stuff got the best of us. You know what I'm saying? As a whole, it got the best of a lot of people in the year 2020. Yeah, so I definitely understand what you're saying. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because it seemed like it got to the point where we were losing so many people. Um, for example, my church, we've lost over 22 people. Um, and and so we were all just grieving.
Yeah.
And and when I would get a phone call that, so and so passed away, initially I would be just it would just take me over because it kept hitting me, it kept hitting me, it kept hitting me.
Yeah.
But going into my inner body allowed me to think more on the level of, well, no more pain and suffering.
Mm.
God, God is in control.
Mm.
God will always provide. Um, they are in a better place.
Yeah.
I would think not about myself. I would think about that person that transitioned.
Yeah.
Um, and I hope I'm coming across in a positive way and not
No,
in
it's
a
real.
distant way.
It's real.
Like,
You
yeah,
know.
it was happening so often. I had to figure out, okay, Shaka, this is happening, but how are you going to cope in a positive way with it?
Yeah.
Because you it's all about coping.
Yeah.
You can either start drinking or you
Mm.
can figure out a way, or drinking or smoking or gambling, whatever. You don't want to do none of that. You
Yeah.
already have enough issues going on in 2020 anyway,
Right.
especially when the racial issues started happening. That's
Mm.
a whole other story.
Absolutely.
So I just had to take a different approach, especially and start with meditation and things like that. I incorporated that. For example, when I wake up in the morning, I have the little Google Home.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I wake up, I have my alarm. My alarm goes off on my phone, and then the Google Home goes off, and he tells me the weather, and he starts playing meditation music.
Mm-hmm.
And I start my day really calmly, and that's how I make it through the entire day now. So I've been doing that for about a month now and
Mm.
have felt amazing. And then I set different things, like I use my phone for everything. So that calendar, I put
Mm-hmm.
everything in my calendar because I
Yeah.
believe if you schedule it, you'll
Yeah.
do
You
it.
do it. Right.
So
Right.
I also incorporated working out. And I know you probably see my little
Yeah.
videos,
You flexing
but
on the gram.
man, I honestly feel like working out kind of saved my life too.
Wow.
Um, Not only getting healthier, but it gave me another place to focus my attention in a healthy way.
Mm.
Um, and when I'm stressed out or anxious and I go work out, I leave it all on the floor.
Yeah.
I feel so much better when I'm done. And so I just want to encourage everybody to find something. It doesn't have to be working out, it doesn't have to be listening to meditation music, but you have to find something.
Something.
And
Right.
you have to cope with things in a positive way.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah, we all like I said, 2020 really tested us, man. And many of us, we may not have had those skills and that background knowledge of, going through anxiety, going through depression,
Right.
going through, mourning and grieving and that type of thing. You say in on your side, down in South Carolina, your church family, y'all lost 20 people,
20 plus.
20 plus people, and not all of them were to COVID, you know.
Right. Not all of them were to COVID. Some were the constant
Yeah,
losing people,
yeah,
and it's everything combined at layers and layers of pressure.
yeah,
And and some people don't even realize all the layers that are on them. And then all of a sudden you just break.
mm,
So and I'm glad you brought up self-care, because so my example for self-care and what how it works is a soda bottle. So when you have a soda bottle, and I don't know if I shared this with you before, but you have a soda bottle, and what happens if you shake it up?
okay. It like fizzes up to the
It
point
has
where
all
it
this
explodes.
pressure in it.
Right, pressure. Yeah,
And so what happens when you open that top?
it'll explode.
It explodes.
Yeah,
And whoever is around that soda bottle when it explodes,
yeah,
it's going to get soda on them, whether they
true.
wanted soda that day or not.
Right.
And so that bottle is your body.
Yeah.
And so if you're walking around with all these layers, they're indirect layers that you don't
Yeah.
even realize is getting on you, or getting on you. Sorry.
Mm,
You don't
yeah.
realize you're carrying all these layers on you until one day it just explodes. And
Mm,
it explodes inappropriately. You may be lashing out at people that don't deserve it, or you just have a breakdown. So that's why it's important to do self-care, because self-care is like twisting the top a little bit just to let some of the pressure out.
yeah.
Not all at one time, but every time you meditate, every time you exercise, every time you take deep breaths, you're letting a little bit of that pressure out of that bottle to where you can open a bottle and nothing's going to come out. It's just going to simmer, which is what it needs to be healthy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And that, oh man, that's big. I like that illustration. And that's one thing about leadership, man, that we really need to pay more attention to is that, well, in education we call it that social emotional learning,
Mhm.
SEL. We hear it all the time,
Yeah.
in that emotional intelligence, because a part of that includes being able to know how your body responds to certain things and know
Yes.
what triggers your body, and finding um, the right thing to cope, as you mentioned, the right thing to deal with it, the right thing to do to release that pressure.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, they get this idea that when they're a leader, then you know
Oh
pretty
yeah.
much they're on top of the world, and they're ruling this. They're telling people to do this and telling people they're running things. A lot of people, they want that. They want to feel like they have that type of power. But one thing about leadership, and especially in the mental health field, one thing about leadership, not only are you dealing with the things that you're dealing with on a daily basis,
Oh, yeah.
but now other people, the people that you're leading, they're
Mhm.
also piling things up on your plate, you
Yeah.
know. And so what you going to do then? If you can't handle what you're going through, if you don't have those tools, those coping mechanisms, whatever it is that you need to keep your stuff at bay,
Yes.
you know, I feel like you need to have that straight before you step into on this platform to do it the right way. Because if you don't have it, either you're going to neglect yourself or you're going to
Hmm.
neglect the people who are believing in you as a leader, and you don't want to do either of those things.
And what are you showing them?
Right.
You're showing them to not take care of
Not
yourself.
right. Leading
And
by
how are you
example.
going to pour into somebody else when you don't have anything to pour?
Exactly.
But I think a leader is a person that pours into others to help them become leaders.
That's right. That's right.
So that's why you have to show them, okay, and it just goes back to being a human,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I say to some of my the people that I lead, okay, well, I'm not able to talk right now. Give me about 10 minutes. Let me just get myself together because I need to de-escalate from another person I just talked to.
Mm-hmm.
Just to show them like, okay, these are some of the skills that you need to
Skills.
have
Yeah.
because it's necessary
Yeah.
if you want to survive.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And one thing as a leader, you can't, you have to master responses, and that's the bottom line. You can't say everything that you want to say in all situations to whoever. You can't. So you have to be able to understand using your skills, your coping skills, using that your social emotional knowledge, using all of those things, um, to find the right response to the right person at the right time. You just can't clap back at everybody. As a leader, even though you may feel like it, you may be in a situation where you want to let them know how you feel. Okay, you can do that, but there's a way to do it you know. Uh,
Yeah.
but that's a whole nother episode right there. Those,
Well,
those
well, no,
responses,
that goes back into getting back into your inner
your
body
inner, yeah, that's good.
and
Yeah,
taking a deep breath and focusing on your breath and focusing on your tension. Do you have your fist balled up?
mm-hmm,
Are your
mm-hmm,
toes curled? Like
yeah,
what are you feeling like? And so
right.
once you breathe and focus on your inner body, whatever comes up will be an educated response.
There you go. I love it. I love it. So if you were to have your own master leadership class, and you got tons of young leaders, and like I said before, even seasoned leaders that's looking for some more things to put into their pocket, um, what would be some topics of emphasis in this particular class?
Well, one topic in particular that I will focus on, you might laugh, but you know it's going to be start tomorrow today.
Hey, that I love it
Start
though.
tomorrow today.
There you go. There you go.
And I should be launching my book start tomorrow
Woo,
in the late spring, early summer. So look out
awesome.
for that.
Yes.
Uh, but the biggest thing is starting today, doing
Hmm.
something today that your future self will thank you for. And again, this is what I talk about in my book. It's important to not wait until tomorrow or put things off. Tomorrow is never promised, especially in the times that we're living in right now.
Yes.
Um, Start today. Write it down. Um, Even write it down. Take some notes. Just
Yeah.
something small, but just make sure your future self will thank you
Yeah.
for writing that down or filling out that application or talking to that loved one that you fell out and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
mending relationships. Start today,
Yeah.
start now.
That's good. That's good. That's a great topic. And that's you. That can open up so many other levels,
Yes.
that can help anyone really. That's awesome. One of the other things, okay, we talked about 2020 and some of the impact, and we can go further about how 2020 treated us. So we're checking for understanding. So my
Okay.
question now, what are you taking from, what did you learn from 20 that you like to bring it to 21?
My focus for 2021 that 2020 taught me was
Mm-hmm.
that I am more resilient than I think I am.
Mm.
And I thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
I'm smarter than I thought I was.
Okay.
And because I try not to take myself too seriously.
Okay.
And 2020 has taught me that I am resilient.
Mm-hmm.
I that it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to share that with others.
Yeah.
It's okay to be human. It taught me a lot about self-care and positive thinking.
Mm.
And I taught a lot about going into the inner body. It taught me so much about myself.
Yeah.
Um, it taught me about what I need, and it taught me to focus on doing what I want to do and not what others want me to do.
Mm.
Um, it taught me about turning off the TV,
Mm.
unplugging from social media.
Okay.
Um, and for 2021, I want to focus on being the best Chaka Smith that I can be
Yeah. Yeah.
and making sure that I have something in me that I can pour into others, that I'm not left empty.
Yeah.
Being authentically me is
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. It
It's
is.
okay. And doing things that I love to do and what's best for my family and my community.
Yeah.
That's what 2021 has taught me.
Awesome. 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 So as we close, man, first of all, I want to say once again, thank you. Thank you for just sharing your time and sharing your experience, sharing your mindset with us. And I'm sure some out of our million viewers and followers, millions, excuse me, I didn't put the S on it on the end. Um, I'm sure somebody, learned something today. So um, show us, and you kind of went into it when you started talking about your book, but tell us where we can follow you. Like, if someone wants to get connected with Dr. Smith, Dr. Chaka Smith, where can they find you? Where can they find your work, or how can they follow you?
I have a page, Dr. Shaka Smith, on Facebook. On Instagram, it's I am Shaka Smith. Also, my website, www.drshakasmith.com.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. We love what you're doing
Thank
down
you.
in Anderson, South Carolina.
Yes.
Um, you're doing some big things, man, and we are very, very, very proud of you. Um,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
yep, yep. So, with that being said, you have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Awesome.
Listen, I truly appreciate you all taking the time to chime in to the Infinite Impact Leadership Podcast. Be on the lookout for the leadership series called Checking for Understanding, where I'm going to sit down with some awesome leaders to get their perspectives about what they've learned in 2020 and how it will impact their 2021. So you do not want to miss out on that. You can find more work and posts and interactions on the Facebook page, Dr. Daryl Crosby. So go ahead and like the page, as well as become a part of the Infinite Impact Leadership Group on Facebook, and chime in with some of the discussions and ideas that I shared with some wonderful current and aspiring leaders. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram at Daryl Cross. That's DARYLCROS. So follow me there too, and I'll follow back. Go ahead over to Apple Podcasts and leave that 5-star review and that comment, and I will be sure to shout you out on a future episode. There's so many ways to connect with me and everything that I'm doing. Your support is greatly appreciated. Meanwhile, remember that leadership is a platform, not a pedestal. We've seen firsthand what poor leadership looks like and what it produces. Don't be that one, because there are generations that are dependent on your leadership.